This week on Vaticano, Pope Francis celebrates Divine Mercy Sunday Mass together with some 600 missionaries of mercy. Discover with us what Harvard students learn from coming to the Vatican, and be a witness of how St. Gregory of Narek unites leaders of the Armenian Apostolic Church at the Vatican. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. Under the merciful gaze of Jesus and accompanied by the solemn hymns of the Jubilee year, Pope Francis celebrated Divine Mercy Mass in St. Peter's Square.
Because he is mercy and works wonders in our wretchedness. Let us today, like Thomas, implore the grace to acknowledge our God, to find in his forgiveness our joy, and in his mercy our hope.
La nostra speranza.
The Pope said that God's mercy comes through the sacrament of reconciliation. People are often tempted to barricade themselves away from God because of shame, resignation, and sin. Pope Francis said that being ashamed of our sins can be a gift. It's a secret invitation of our soul that lets God enter to overcome the evil in our lives. Some 600 missionaries of mercy can celebrate Mass with the Pontiff. They were commissioned 2 years ago during the Jubilee year of mercy by the Pope. The Church sent these missionaries to spread the message of God's mercy and granted them the authority to pardon even those sins that normally require an explicit approval of the Holy See. After Mass, Pope Francis prayed the Easter Marian prayer, the Regina Coeli.
There is no good war or bad war. There is nothing that can justify the use of such instruments or extermination against unarmed people and populations.
Holy Father strongly denounced the use of unconventional weapons following a recent attack in Douma, in Syria. Pope Francis welcomed 3,000 children from the Italian Diocese of Brescia.
They say that where there's children, there's noise. But here, it's quiet.
The Holy Father wished that the upcoming Synod of Bishops in October on young people, the faith, and vocational discernment be prepared by truly listening to young people. Pope Francis recalled the question of one of the youngsters who had asked if it was true that bishops really believed that young people can help the Church to change.
I have the right to ask questions, and I want to ask you something. You rightly ask yourself if we bishops are willing to really listen to you and change something in the Church. And I ask you, are you willing to listen to Jesus and change something about yourself?
Later in his speech, the Pope referred to St. Francis of Assisi, who in his younger days was full of worldly dreams. But after hearing Jesus speak to him from the crucifix, he completely changed his life, becoming humble, poor, simple, merciful, and full of joy. The Diocese of Brescia is the home of Blessed Paul VI, who is expected to be canonized this coming fall. The Pope gave the young people the task of finding out about the dreams of Blessed Pope Paul VI as a young man and a student. The Holy Father welcomed members of the Emmanuel Community on the occasion of their annual meeting. Kathleen Lahif, a member of the community, was one of them.
One of the reasons for this meeting was to thank the Holy Father and the Vatican, in fact, for our new clerical association for the priests. And so we as laity, as members of the community, we were invited also to come along. So it was fantastic to see our brother priests and bishops together, and then to see the colour of the laity, the families, the single people, those who are consecrated in celibacy, brothers and sisters. It was the whole community and all the charisms together.
The Pope said that the pilgrimage is a sign of the full participation of the community in the communion of the whole Catholic Church.
It is also an opportunity for me to thank you for your fidelity and your attachment to the successor of Peter, to tell you of the appreciation with which I view your missionary commitment, now present on all continents, and to encourage you to persevere in the future.
And he said, I'm grateful for your community because you go out. You are the church in movement. You are the church in action. You go to the peripheries, you go to the poor. And he asked us, in fact, personally to reach out to the poor. Not those material poor, but those who are poor in body and poor in spirit. And he thanked us because he says, this is something, it's like my wish list, you know, for the church.
The Emmanuel Community is an international association of the faithful. The community includes members from various walks of life, diocesan priests, consecrated men and women, and lay people. The main charism of the community is to reveal the presence of God within ordinary life, following three main pillars: adoration, compassion, and evangelization. During an audience with the members of the Association of the Priests of Parado, Pope Francis invited them to follow in the footsteps of their founder, Blessed Antoine Chevrier.
You are now a beautiful family of priests, nuns, and consecrated laywomen, distributed in various countries, inhabited by the same love of Jesus, who became poor among the poor, and by the same keenness to evangelize.
The Holy Father said that poor people are open to faith, they need God, and the refusal of spiritual attention is the worst type of discrimination. The Association of Priests of Parado is a Catholic movement that unites priests and lay people to serve the poor in the most impoverished and de-Christianized areas. Thanks for watching. Get ready to take a look at Holy See diplomacy in action. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
In March, during the Human Rights Council's 37th session, an interactive dialogue with the Special Rapporteur on freedom of religion and belief took place here at the UN's Human Rights Council room in Geneva.
We support the Special Rapporteur's recommendation on encouraging states to facilitate interfaith communication and to invest in both religious literacy and religious freedom literacy.
So states encouraging interfaith communication and religious freedom literacy, that seems to be possible. But that a state invests in religious literacy, like books, even promoting religious literacy, is this a reachable goal?
Yes, it is in a different sense, perhaps. In his report on freedom of religion and belief, the Special Rapporteur analyzes the state-religion relationships. And also he stresses the obligation of states to act as an impartial guarantor for freedom of religion and belief. In this context, education has a very important role to play. The goal is to ensure that people have the knowledge, the necessary knowledge through education, which is basically a state responsibility. Religious literacy should be promoted by providing information on different faiths and religions in order to understand cultural and social backgrounds, traditions, backgrounds. In countries where several religions are being practiced, intra-faith dialogue is of particular importance because it is an element of a peaceful society. And this can only be achieved through educating the different communities in faith matters and building bridges between populations of different faiths.
And I think this is completely in alignment with Pope Francis, who has said that we need to understand the other religion better. So education is the first step to really know the other religion better.
Exactly. We need to respect each other and at the same time understand what the other person is believing in, what his traditions are, why his cultural background is like that. So it's a whole context which needs to be, so in fact it's just getting to know the other person better and going on from there.
We are also grateful to the Special Rapporteur for reminding states of their obligation to provide protection to refugees and migrants, regardless of their specific religion or belief. Thank you.
Your Excellency, from the Order of Malta's viewpoint, is this what we just heard implemented, exercised in America or even in Europe?
Well, there are no doubt gaps in certain countries. particularly in situations of conflicts and forced displacement. However, Article 18 of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and also other international instruments like the Convention on the Status of Refugees are clear on states' obligations with regard to the refugees' freedom to practice their religion. The Human Rights Council has also adopted a number of resolutions which are intended to strengthen these provisions.
You told us, I remember, that the Order of Malta in Germany has even established their prayer room.
Yes, because within the context of their projects to integrate migrants and refugees in their new environment, you also have to think of spiritual assistance, not just material assistance, because people who have lost everything try to find new roots, and the spiritual dimension is of extreme importance in such situations.
It's probably the only thing they have, their faith.
Exactly, they have their faith, and their faith enables them then to integrate into a new community which shares their same faith and religion, and they can then go on from there.
In the second part of our interview, we will talk about what the Holy See had said in their intervention. They talked about freedom from religion, and we will find out what the United Nations is really doing to secure freedom of religion and implement that in the world, in the member states.
I'm Jack Clark. I'm a junior at Harvard studying classics and government.
My name is Greta. I was born and raised in Lithuania.
Hi, I'm Jakub Florkiewicz. I'm a Polish student at Harvard doing MBA.
And Okendo Lewis Gale are the organizers of the 2018 Harvard-Vatican Leadership Summit. Okendo tells us how everything got started.
Having had the pleasure of growing up in Rome and working with the church, and then also attending Harvard, I thought, how could we build a bridge between these two? And the bridge was built around the issue of servant leadership. Whether it's the church or Harvard, they both have a desire to create individuals who are going to act on their values and transform the world.
And so the Catholic Church opened her knowledge of 2,000 years of leadership experience for the students through the ministers.
We've met with some really, really wonderful people. I think the crown jewel was yesterday meeting Cardinal Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, who received us in somewhat of a state visit and talked with us for upwards of an hour about mostly diplomatic relations and the Vatican's role in that, but he really answered a lot of questions for us with great frankness and honesty, but also great thoughtfulness and reflectiveness about how the Vatican makes decisions, what his role is, and I mean, everyone's excited to know about Pope Francis and the inner workings of the Vatican.
I think as Jack has also said, one of the key meetings that we had was with Cardinal Parolin, but I personally also enjoyed very much meeting Archbishop Gallagher, and I enjoyed it very much because he was very outspoken, he was very direct in his answers, he shared a lot with us, and it's just been humbling to be able to meet those amazing people, those high-ranking officials, and talk to them as people, to see that despite their high ranks in the church, they're willing to give us time to meet with students, to discuss, to just sit with us, listen to our questions, and most importantly, that they are also interested in hearing what the youth has to say.
During the 6-day summit, the students managed not only to garner knowledge from top church officials, but also took selfies with the Pope, as well as acquiring his autograph during the general audience.
Harvard University.
Everyone appreciated their Italian cousins a great deal and even got soaked under the Roman rain. At the Apostolic Palace, the students were welcomed as guests of honor and were brought to view the Sistine Chapel, the place where new popes are elected. After the meeting with the patrons of the arts of the Vatican museums, the students offered their project of collaboration.
So we're working on a project that helps to bring young people into fundraising for art, to engage the younger generation, to inspire them to contribute to restoration of art.
26 students from over 100 applicants from various Harvard groups participated in the trip.
As a Catholic, I believe that Providence plays an active role in the decision-making of the Church and what happens to the members of the Church. And seeing how I think Providence has worked through people like Archbishop Gallagher and Cardinal Parolin and many others that we've met this year, I think it just gives me a great sense of faith and reassurance.
What I'd like to use this opportunity for is to say thank you to the team of the people who created this. It would not be possible without the support of the students. I'm really grateful for all the volunteers who spent a year working on this project, and they spend sleepless night, and they've been working after class, before classes, and have been working sometimes even during classes.
Hopefully what we will see out of this is not just a nice trip, but a growing number of initiatives that are the true manifestation of servant leadership.
Thanks for watching. Stick around for more on Vaticano. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano. St. Gregory of Narek found his place in the Vatican gardens and made a bridge between the Catholic Church and the Apostolic Church of Armenia. This large statue, Pope Francis blessed in the presence of Armenian President Serge Sargsyan, the ambassador of the Holy See, Mikhail Manasyan, and with the participation of the two patriarchs of the Armenian Apostolic Church.
St. Gregory of Narek is a bridge. It's a bridge between Armenian Church and Catholic Church. Is a bridge between our two realities, and very important, is a bridge between two worlds, Armenian world and Western world. It's a bridge between East and West, and is a bridge between land and sky. He was the Armenian poet for more than 1,000 years, and we are very grateful to Pope Francis for this recognition of historical importance in international culture of St. Gregory of Narek and all Armenian theology, role of Armenian theology.
Gregory of Narek was a monk, poet, mystical philosopher, and theologian. He lived in the 10th century in Great Armenia. He became widely known and appreciated by Catholics when Pope Francis proclaimed him a doctor of the Church during Mass in 2015. A day ahead, the Holy Father received Serge Sargsyan, President of the Republic of Armenia, in a one-on-one meeting at the Vatican. After the meeting, the outgoing Armenian president offered the Pope a silver model of St. Gaian Church in Armenia. The Pope in turn gave a marble copy of a sculpture depicting the Holy Family and copies of his latest writings. The Pontiff also welcomed two leaders of the Armenian Apostolic Churches. The Armenian churches have been divided into two branches due to historical circumstances. The Catholicos of the Armenians, Karakin II, has primacy over the two branches. His Holiness Karakin offered the Pope a book containing the writings of St. Gregory of Narek. Right after, the Holy Father welcomed His Holiness Aram I, Catholicus of the Great House of Cilicia.
Nice to see you. How is your health? Good? Today is Armenian Day in the Vatican.
According to the press service of the Apostolic Church of Cilicia, during the meeting, Catholicos Aram brought up the need of a single date of celebration of Easter among all churches, the importance of interfaith dialogue, and the situation of Christians in the Middle East. The Catholicos offered the Pope a cross. In his turn, the Pope gave a stone cross with the depiction of the Sistine Chapel and his three most recent writings.
For the ceremony.
Pope Francis visited Armenia in June of 2016. Located in the heart of the Caucasus, the biblical land of Armenia converted to Christianity in the year 301 AD. For the 3 days that the trip lasted, there was a concrete sentiment of its ecumenical character, a desire to deepen the common roots that unite the two Christian churches. On June the 24th at 3 in the afternoon, the Pope's airplane touched down at the international airport of Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. As a sign of closeness and fraternity, during his stay, the Pope didn't stay at a nunciature, but was the guest of his brother in the faith, Karakin II. And for this reason, his first stop was at the headquarters of the Patriarchate of Echmiadzin. There in the cathedral of the Armenian Apostolic Church, built over the foundations of the first great Christian church, the Pope prayed for the unity of Christians.
The patient and enduring commitment to full unity, the growth of joint initiatives, and cooperation between all the Lord's disciples in service to the common good. All these are like a radiant light in a dark night, and a summons to experience even our differences in an attitude of charity and mutual understanding.
The successive meetings that day were marked by the memory of what Armenians call Metz Yeger, the great evil, the killing of 1.5 million Armenian citizens at the hands of Turks 100 years ago. In the presidential palace, before representatives of the government and the diplomatic corps, the Pope condemned the indifference of the great powers in the face of aberrations like the Armenian genocide, an indifference that today continues to be an accomplice to the martyrdom of millions of Christians across the world.
Sadly, that tragedy, that genocide, was the first of the deplorable series of catastrophes of the past century, made possible by twisted racial, ideological, or religious aims that darkened the minds of the tormentors, even to the point of planning the annihilation of entire peoples. It is sad that in this, as in the other two, the great powers looked the other way.
The second day of the trip started with a visit to the monument dedicated to the memory of the Armenian genocide. Before the eternal flame, always lit in remembrance of the victims, the pontiff asked that humanity not forget tragedies like this, and that we may know how to win over evil with the good. After some minutes of silence, the Pope and Karakin II headed to the open space at the memorial. There, with Mount Ararat in the distance, the two religious leaders planted a tree as a sign of fraternity and remembrance of the visit. At the end of the event, the pontiff greeted a dozen descendants of the 400 Armenian children who in 1915 were saved and given shelter in the pontifical residence of Castel Gandolfo by Pope Benedict XV. That same day in the afternoon, Pope Francis and Karakin II presided over an ecumenical encounter of prayer for peace in Republic Square, located at the center of the nation's capital of Yerevan. Before the faithful gathered, the Pope declared his sincere affection for the beloved land of Armenia. He called it a valiant nation, example of loyalty and strength for Christians in the entire world.
Here I would again state that your sufferings are our own. They are the sufferings of the members of Christ's mystical body. Not to forget them is not only right, it is a duty. May they be a perennial warning lest the world fall back into the maelstrom of similar horrors. At the same time, I recall with admiration how the Christian faith, even at the most tragic moments of Armenian history, was the driving force that marked the beginning of your suffering people's rebirth.
The Pope's trip to Armenia concluded on Sunday, June the 26th. Among the different events in which the Pope participated, the celebration of the Divine Liturgy in the Armenian Orthodox Cathedral stood out. During his speech, the pontiff bid farewell to the nation and appealed once more for the unity of all Christians.
May the Armenian Church walk in peace, and may the communion between us be complete. May an ardent desire for unity rise up in our hearts, a unity that must not be the submission of one to the other or assimilation, but rather the acceptance of all the gifts that God has given to each. This will reveal to the entire world the great mystery of salvation accomplished by Christ the Lord through the Holy Spirit.
At 5 in the afternoon, an hour before boarding his return flight, Pope Francis wished to pray in the Kor Virap Monastery, one of the most important sacred places in the nation. At less than 30 miles from the capital, very close to the Turkish border, and at the feet of the biblical Mount Ararat, this monastery hides the well where Saint Gregory the Illuminator remained imprisoned by King Tiridates III, persecutor of Christians, for more than 13 years. There, the Pope and the Oriental Orthodox leader lit a candle, and after praying in the chapel, they went to the monastery's scenic overlook, where they liberated 2 doves in the direction of the biblical mount as a sign of unity and peace. At 6:30 p.m., the papal plane took off, heading back to the Eternal City. Join us next week on Vaticano and take an inside look at the new apostolic exhortation, Gaudete et Exultate. Thanks for watching.